G'day. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm going to read a statement. I apologise in advance for the length. Please allow me to outline all of the information I need to in full. I promise you I will take all of your questions at the end. It's clear that I've had a falling out with Simon Bridges. This day has been coming for months. Not long after the leadership change where he became leader, I started to question Simon's leadership decisions, the positions he was taking, and whether he was connecting with voters. I also questioned whether some of his activity was lawful and the standard expected of a party leader. I used to be very close to Simon Bridges. I was his numbers man, alongside Todd McClay, during his campaign for deputy leader in 2016 and for leader earlier this year. I once thought Simon Bridges was capable of being Prime Minister. Now that I see what he's really like, it's clear he is not. I only wish I knew this months ago, what I know now. I've been critical of Simon Bridges' leadership because he went out to the country to introduce himself, and the country said, "Simon, mate, we don't like you much." Simon's personal poll ratings have fallen catastrophically. The National Party polls on favourability weekly. When Simon first became leader, he had a net positive favourability. More people liked him than disliked him. Quickly within weeks, that turned negative. He now has a net negative favourability of -27 on the internal polling. The speed and magnitude of Simon's unlikability is worse than Phil Goff, David Shearer and Andrew Little had when they were opposition leader. The New Zealand public are not stupid, and they've seen what I had failed to see until now. Simon is a flawed individual, without a moral compass and without any underlying principles except power. It was revealed yesterday by News Hub that Simon Bridges altered his election donation return. The Electoral Act clearly states that knowingly filing a false return is a corrupt practice. I know Simon filed a false return because Todd McClay and I spotted that false name in his return in January and suggested it needed to be tidied up. Simon Bridges knows exactly what Cathedral Club is. It was a name used to hide a donation from a close friend of his. He claims it was a clerical error. I call BS on that. It is simply implausible that someone that touts his skill as a former Crown prosecutor, as an honest person and as someone that thinks he is fit to be Prime Minister, it is simply implausible that he signed a form with a false name for a donor that he knows well and that he didn't notice. The Electoral Act says filing a false return is a corrupt practice. Falsifying the name of a donor to hide their identity is a corrupt practice. I believe Simon Bridges is a corrupt politician. This is not the only unlawful activity that Simon Bridges is involved in. On Monday the 14th of May this year, I attended a dinner with Simon Bridges at the home of a wealthy Chinese businessman. This individual is known to both Simon and myself. The following week, on Monday 21 May, Simon called me in the evening. He'd been at a fundraiser for Paul Goldsmith in Epsom. He was excited because he was offered a $100,000 donation from the same wealthy Chinese businessman. Simon asked me to collect this donation. He was at pains to point out that the donation should not be made public, and could I ensure this? I was naive and I acted on my leader's instructions. I duly carried out Simon Bridges' wish. A $100,000 donation was collected. It was split in smaller donations that were below the $15,000 declaration threshold, and the full $100,000 donation has not been disclosed to the Electoral Commission. Simon Bridges will deny that he asked me to do this, but on the 20th of June, after the donation was received, I called Simon, knowing that the leader of the National Party had asked me to carry out an unlawful act. I had the presence of mind to record the conversation Simon and I had. I reminded him that he had dinner at the individual's home. He acknowledged this by saying yes. I reminded him that he was offered a $100,000 donation. He also agreed with this point by saying yes. I then told him the $100,000 donation had been received. He expressed his excitement by saying, "Fantastic." I then asked him what he wanted done with the donation, and we discussed how to tell Party President Peter Goodfellow. We also discussed Simon having promised to have dinner with the Chinese businessman at Simon's own home in Tauranga in the future. I'm not proud that I didn't have the courage to speak truth to power back then, but now I have the clarity to understand that multiple breaches of electoral law by Simon Bridges is not acceptable. On the 12th of September, Greg Hamilton from the National Party questioned the identity of the donors that made up the $100,000. He asked me for information. I advised Greg that Simon Bridges arranged the donation and I was tasked with collecting it. I further advised Greg that if he felt the law hadn't been complied with, then the donation may have to be returned. He thought that would be a shame. Tomorrow I will be visiting the New Zealand Police to lay an official complaint. I will give New Zealand Police the courtesy of hearing the phone recording of my conversation with Simon Bridges before I release it publicly. I will also release my text messages with Greg Hamilton at the same time later this week. After this media stand-up, I will also release photos of Simon Bridges with the Chinese businessman and at the dinner that was held on the 14th of May to prove it took place. I want to make it clear, I don't believe the Chinese businessman has done anything wrong. They're good people. They have been caught up in a very unfortunate set of events. This should be a clear indication, though, to any future National Party donors that it would be unwise to give the party any funding under its current leadership. My dramatic internal falling out with Simon Bridges is why I am now the target of a campaign to push me out. It is clear from the PwC report that no person could be identified as the leaker of Simon Bridges' Crown car expenses. Rather, my communication with my local police area commander is being used against me. Local MPs talk to their local police officers. That's what good local MPs do. The way in which unrelated communications of mine have been used against me is the very reason why so many MPs were suspicious about the very broad-ranging privacy waiver and were reluctant to sign. Like many others, though, I signed it under pressure and trusted that unrelated communication would not be stitched together to form a conclusion. How very wrong I was. I am pleased to see the Speaker has issued a statement outlining that my returning his calls on 23 August was a case of the Speaker incorrectly calling me, not the other way around. The Speaker also confirmed that he advised Simon Bridges immediately that the Speaker had called me incorrectly. Yet this communication with the Speaker is still being used as part of the supposed evidence against me. It's also worth noting that yesterday I asked for an opportunity to address the caucus prior to any release of the PwC report. I felt I was owed natural justice. This was denied to me, and I was not invited to join the caucus conference call that took place prior to Simon Bridges' media stand-up. I had not even had an opportunity to fully read and digest the report before it was released to the media. I further note that the date on the PwC report is dated yesterday, 15 October. To add to questions of the report's credibility, Simon Bridges is asking us all to believe that they were delivered a report, had a QC peer review it and provide an opinion, and both Simon and Paula Bennett, who was at the meeting with me yesterday, had read and made notes on the report all before an 11:30 a.m. meeting with me. Clearly that's also very hard to believe. The campaign to push me out did ramp up considerably 3 weeks ago. I was called by Paula Bennett for an unexpected meeting. I was marched to Simon Bridges' office, where he told me I had 4 women that had complained I had harassed them and he was sacking me. This was a shock. To the best of my knowledge, I have not harassed any woman. I asked for details. I was told 4 women had independently approached Paula to tell her I had harassed them. I was told the woman did not want to take it further, but I must resign my portfolios, leave Parliament to the end of the year and return to the backbenches in the new year. To say I was shocked was an understatement. I asked for details. I was not given any. I pressed for more details because I believe I've done nothing wrong. I was given none, not even the substance of them, just that I had harassed 4 women. My suspicions arose when the story changed. The woman now had not just approached Paula, but they'd approached both Paula and the Chief of Staff, Jamie Gray. They'd not approached Parliamentary Services, their employer. I raised this with Simon Bridges, and he told me if I kept asking for natural justice, that it would not be just 4 women, he could get 15 women. The changing nature of the story made me think it was a bluff, and a bluff being played out by some seriously unethical people who are so proud of their own importance they can't accept dissent. The following week it was announced that I was taking leave for medical reasons. It's true, I suffered a medical event. To see that my career was being ended off the back of these allegations that I could not answer all of a sudden came up just as I was questioning Simon's leadership. That was difficult to accept, and I had a mental breakdown. The timing was clearly appalling, given the leak inquiry and the connection to mental health. I was further deeply hurt that Simon Bridges characterised my own mental health as embarrassing. No one should have their boss tell the nation that their mental health and their medical needs are embarrassing. I was raised by my grandmother and great-grandmother to respect women. I strenuously deny any allegations that I have harassed anyone. I've served in public office for nearly 15 years, and I've never once had such a complaint made against me until now. It's highly suspicious that in the space of weeks, supposedly 4 women, or maybe 15 women, have all of a sudden come forward, independent of each other, not knowing about each other, none of them wanting to make formal complaints to their employer or take any further action. And I was provided no information, no natural justice, no ability to answer anything. Simon and Paula were the judge, jury and executioners, and it all happened in a matter of minutes. It also sounded very suspicious. It was coincidentally the same week that Brett Kavanaugh was facing similar allegations in the United States. The past few weeks have been challenging. I am now medically well again, and I have greater clarity. I can no longer serve in a political party led by a corrupt politician, as defined by his actions in breach of the Electoral Act. It is also clear from internal polling that Simon Bridges is becoming more and more unlikable. I believe he's dishonest. I believe he has poor political judgment and management, and I don't believe he is fit to be Prime Minister. I'll therefore be resigning my National Party membership. I will further resign my seat in the House of Representatives on Friday this week. My mandate as a Member of Parliament is from my community and the Botany electorate. My contract is with them and them alone. For a decade and a half in local and central government, I've served my community to the best of my ability. I've fought for my community. I've stood up when they've asked me to, and I've always communicated with them about why I feel I can best serve their interests. The coming Botany by-election will be a referendum on Simon Bridges' leadership and his fitness to serve New Zealand. I will stand as an independent candidate. I will ask my community to endorse my service to them and decide if I am fit to continue. I'm sure the National Party will stand a candidate, likely someone foreign to Botany. They would sit voiceless up on the opposition backbenches, nodding and clapping at every opportunity they can, sitting in a party led by someone that asks his MPs to carry out unlawful activity. Botany can elect that national candidate, or they can re-elect someone that has always spoken out when times are tough. I'm speaking out now. I'm standing up for what I believe in, and I will continue to speak out. I still believe in the National Party values that I was first elected under: freedom of speech, small government, building a strong economy, and a caring and compassionate society. I haven't changed my values. Yes, I've had a dramatic falling out with the current National Party leader. I've decided to now speak publicly on matters that I was gaining no traction on internally. The National Party caucus contains many, many good people. When they have an honest and a capable leader, like Amy Adams, or Judith Collins, or Mark Mitchell, I believe the party will be in a much better position to lead a government. New Zealand deserves better from the National Party. I'm sorry that I was part of installing someone as leader that is so inadequate. I'm not proud of not speaking out until now, but I do so with a clear conscience. I'm sad to be departing, for now, a party with many, many good people. I'm now taking the decision of who represents the Botany electorate out of Simon Bridges' hands. It's now firmly back in the hands of local people that I've been proud to serve for over a decade.
Simon Bridges would say that you are bound to lash out because you feel you've been wronged.
Simon Bridges will also tell you he hasn't broken electoral law, but that's patently false as well. I'm somebody who has spoken out internally. I'm somebody who has spoken truth to power internally. That hasn't worked. I'm now the subject of a smear campaign. I was pushed out on medical leave a couple of weeks ago. I've now recovered, and I'm here to speak publicly, and I'm here to outline what I believe to be the truth.
Jami-Lee, do any members of the National Party caucus share your views about Simon Bridges?
Many, many people in the National Party caucus share my views, but they're all too concerned to speak publicly. Look what's happened to me. I was somebody that was close to Simon, so questioning his leadership and questioning his decisions has led to me having quite a substantial fall. I was once close to him. I know what he's like now, and I know that many people in the caucus, my now former colleagues, share my view, but they'll rally behind the leader today. That's what political parties do. They'll get behind him.
Mr. Tears, when you were talking about your time with the National Party and the fact that you're leaving the National Party, are you doing okay?
I'm doing well, thank you. When those allegations were put to me 3 weeks ago, they were devastating. I mean, as I said, I've served in public office for 15 years now, local government, central government, and I've done so without ever having any such complaint made against me. To have 4 people, or maybe 15 people, because the story kept changing, all come forward. No one wants to identify themselves. I was not told any information. Their employer was never told. There was no opportunity to answer anything. That was devastating. That's incredibly hard for a male to survive. And so I could see my world crashing down around me, and I struggled for a couple of weeks. I got assistance. I've had assistance now. A doctor has said that I'm fit to make decisions about my career and my future and speak publicly, and so I'm doing that now.
Do you see on the record, Jami-Lee?
No.
Expenses or the text message?
No.
Can you explain why you were talking to the police officer then around that time?
Sorry, Jess, ask that question again.
So did you leak the travel expenses?
No.
Did you leak the text message?
Yes, I did so because we had, put it this way, I was in a group of about half a dozen people. We were the kitchen cabinet, you could say. Simon Bridges received that text message. Tova received it, the speaker received it as well. Hearing that text message was gut-wrenching. Hearing that somebody was struggling so much was incredibly hard. And I was floored by the lack of compassion in that room from Simon Bridges. There were 2 of us who said to Simon, we shouldn't have that leak inquiry. You don't know where things are going to go. You don't launch an inquiry in politics if you don't know what the outcome is. It's that old political saying, you know what the answer is before you ask the question. Simon thought he knew the answer. He thought it was the speaker. He said in the caucus, we all know who it was, making a very clear indication it was Trevor Mallard. But we didn't know exactly that. And so Paula, Bennett and I were the only 2 in that room that said, hey, we should hold back and not do this. When the text message came through, there was a discussion about whether the inquiry should continue, whether Simon should take some action to try and stop it. He wanted to box on. Again, it was only Paula, Bennett and I in that room who felt he should not be doing so. Yes, I felt that somebody who had mental health issues, who was struggling, should not have to be subjected to that. I've had challenges in my life. I've had challenges just recently too. And so I made a call to speak to a journalist because I felt that it was important to get that out. I had hoped that getting out the situation from that text message would lead Simon Bridges to show some compassion. I thought he might have a bone of compassion in him. I thought he might share the view of myself and Paula Bennett that we shouldn't be doing this. But he wanted to box on. He's always been of the view that he needs to look strong, he needs to look tough. And if it means taking off someone's head in the political process, then he's quite happy to do that. This is what's happened to me now recently. And so I made a call. Look, when you look back on it, someone who was close to the leader shouldn't do things like that. But I thought trying to get it out publicly that this existed would offer the person a reprieve. Trevor Mallard showed compassion. Trevor Mallard made the compassionate choice to pull back on the inquiry. Simon Bridges did not. I believe that was a very poor decision, and I think he was wrong for doing that.
Given that you leaked to one journalist,
No, I
given
don't.
that you leaked to
No, I
one
don't.
journalist, how can you convince people that you didn't leak Simon Bridges' answers to us?
Look, I'm standing here offering what I know about the party and offering answers to the questions that you have. You're going to make your own conclusions about that. I say I wasn't the leaker to you, Tova. I say that the PwC report also could not conclude who the leaker was. The PwC report, however, has taken unrelated communication that we all trusted wouldn't happen with that privacy waiver. They've taken unrelated communication, pieced it together, and said Jami-Lee contacted a police officer and he contacted the journalist. So he must therefore be the original leaker. There is no evidence that I sent anything to you, Tova. In fact, the very first time we ever had any communication by way of cell phone, other than in the corridor, was yesterday when you asked how I was doing. There's never been any text messages between us in the past, Tova, and you can all believe what you want, but I don't say that report is right. It is inaccurate, and I believe they've also abused the privacy waiver because the privacy waiver said it would take information related to that phone number and related to that document. They've gone and taken information, searched through all our records, pieced together unrelated communication, and pointed it to me. But also said it's not conclusive.
You're going to release the photos,
Yes.
or show the photos of the
Yes.
big Chinese businessman.
I'm operating all by myself right now.
No, but can you tell us the name of that person if it's
Zhang
an
Yikun.
account?
Zhang Yikun.
Mr.
And
Ross,
has that, but you mentioned that that person had...
Z-H-A-N-G, Yikun, Y-I-K-U-N. I don't believe they're bad people. They've unfortunately been sucked into this activity, which is unlawful, at the hands of Simon Bridges.
Are they prior donors to the National or the Labour Party, and have they been involved
I'm
in
pretty
any-
sure that they will have donated quite broadly in the past.
do you have evidence, Jami-Lee, about splitting up that $100,000 donation? Do you have evidence?
Yes.
of this?
I will talk to the police about that tomorrow.
Which people in the final, the Simon Bridges' final filing of his eviction?
They're unrelated. They're unrelated. So you have what was on the AM show yesterday about his electoral donation return from the last election. The $100,000 donation was from May this year. Political parties have an obligation under the Electoral Act to disclose donations over $30,000. By splitting up a donation, a political party can avoid disclosing a donation. However, knowing that there was a $100,000 donation, it was offered to Simon Bridges. He knew it was there. The recording, which I will release publicly later this week after I've spoken to the police and made an official complaint, will show he knew that there was a $100,000 donation. He said it was fantastic. He was offered it on the 21st of May. The reason I bring the two up today is because it's clear evidence that there has been ongoing unlawful activity in relation to donations. First, he removed 2 donations from his initial return. He knew who the donors were. Secondly, on that donation return, the Cathedral Club was a name used to hide a close personal friend of his. It is unlawful to file a false return. He knows what Cathedral Club was. He knows the address that was associated with it. He knows that it was a donation from a certain individual who he should have named. Filing a false return is a corrupt practice. I believe Simon Bridges is a corrupt politician for that reason. I'm bringing the two together today, though, to point out that there's also a second Electoral Act breach, which hasn't yet become public. Only I have that recording. It sits only on my phone. I will give it to the New Zealand Police, and then I will give it to you all.
Were there any other national
National
things
Party?
aware of it?
Was that filed to the National Party, split up and filed to the National Party, was
Yes.
split up and filed under Simon Bridges?
No, filed to the National Party. That if a donation under $15,000 to a political party, if donations under $15,000 to a political party do not have to be disclosed. Over 15, they must be disclosed at the end of the year. Over 30, they must be disclosed within 10 working days. The fact that a $100,000 donation has not been disclosed within 10 working days, and this donation is back in May, June, the National Party has broken the law, and it was at the instruction of Simon Bridges.
Did
Were
you
any
tell
other
Duncan
national
Garner,
MPs aware of this?
did you tell Duncan Garner or point him in the direction of the fact that Bridges had made?
I did not speak to Duncan Garner, but I know that he was being spoken to.
Do you know
This
who-
is something that has been kicking around for a little while. It was known back in January and February by Simon, Todd McClay and I, and then others who looked up electoral donation returns spotted that as well. I knew that it was coming, and I knew that it was going to be released on the AM show.
Were
Did
any
Ms.
other
Ross,
national
did you
MPs aware of the
orchestrate that,
$100,000
pointing out to
donation?
Duncan of the discrepancies between the electoral returns? Did you orchestrate that?
I didn't orchestrate it, but I knew it was happening, and I was happy for it to happen, and I assisted by providing my view and understanding of the Electoral Act to the individual that spoke to Duncan Garner.
Were any other MPs aware of that $100,000 donation?
It was at Paul Goldsmith's fundraiser, so he may have been aware. Todd McClay certainly is also aware, because Todd McClay was also collecting donations at the same time. When Simon went on his Get to Know Me tour, there was a lot of cost to the National Party, so he asked certain MPs to go and find donations. He was offered that $100,000 donation on the 14th of May. He met with the donor on the 14th of May. He was offered the donation on the 21st of May, and he asked me to go and collect it. I know that Todd McClay is also aware. I'm not sure if other members of the caucus are aware. However, I was also, until recently, the National Party caucus rep on the board. The National Party board was aware that there was $100,000 in donations. They wouldn't have been told that it was split up or anything, but Greg Hamilton questioned me on the identity of the split up donors, and I have text messages between myself and Greg Hamilton to prove that he asked that. I made it very clear in those text messages to Greg Hamilton that Simon Bridges was offered it, and I was simply tasked with collecting it. And I suggested also that the donation should be returned if Greg felt there was any question as to the legality of it. Greg thought that would be a shame. I don't know what's happened to it. It's sitting within the National Party funds now. I don't know of other MPs that would be aware of it though.
You're
Mr.
also
Ross,
admitting it that you've committed a criminal act. Will you take responsibility? Will you accept the consequences?
Yeah, if the leader of the National Party asked me to do something that was unlawful, I should have spoken up earlier. I should have said earlier this is wrong. I didn't. I was naive. I was following the instructions of the leader. I'm sorry for that.
Mr. Ross, usually when donations come in cumulatively from the same person, even if they're over a long period, they still get all added up and recorded. Did the
Not if they
donations
have
also
different
get,
names on them.
So they were split between different
Correct.
donors. Right.
But the Electoral Act also says if the original source of the donation is known, it has to be declared, because there's what's called look-through provisions. So, if Jess gives you 20 grand to give to me, then the donor's actually Jess, not you. And the National Party would have an obligation to disclose Jess's name. So an individual went to Simon Bridges and said, we'd like to make a $100,000 donation. Simon Bridges calls me and says, yay, $100,000 is coming in, go collect it. And do whatever, I can't recall the exact words on that phone call because I didn't record that, but he was at pains to point out that it should not be disclosed.
Did you know
If
the donor
Simon
was?
Bridges had not come out yesterday saying that he stood by John Billington's assessment that you leaked the expenses, would you still have come out today with all of this? So
Well, look, he was going to suspend me or expel me from the party. I'm aware, because I've still got about 4 or 5 MPs that still talk to me, that they were talking about waka jumping me. In fact, when the leak stuff was happening and we got the text message in, there were certain members, I'll name them, Todd McClay was quite excited. He said, it'll be the first opportunity for the waka jumping law to be used. So there was a clear decision taken internally at the senior level. I don't know what's going on in the caucus meeting right now, but at the senior level there was a clear desire to waka jumping. So they were going to push me out anyway. I'm making the decision to stand up, speak publicly, resign myself, and I'm happy to face a by-election, stand as an independent. My community will make their decision whether they want a backbencher in the National Party under Simon Bridges, who has done unlawful things with regards to the Electoral Act, to sit up the backbench and just nod their head, or do they want somebody that stood up for them for 15 years and will continue to do so? I believe I can represent Botany. I can speak out more on their behalf as an independent, and I'd like to do so. But I'll let them make that decision.
Do you think you have the numbers to win?
Since you're coming out swinging, why not give us some information on some of the MPs who support you?
No, I'm not going to do that, because there are very good people in the National Party. There are good MPs who I believe would make fantastic cabinet ministers in the future, and I don't want to tarnish them. There are private conversations that MPs have in their offices all the time. The problem Simon has is he hates the fact that anyone speaks ill of anything he has to say. And so the conversations we all have in offices late at night on a regular basis, on a daily basis, he doesn't like the fact that those take place. My problem was I was questioning his leadership and decisions he was making, and I happened to be in the inner team. Had I not been in the inner team, I probably would have just been a stock standard MP that questioned what the National Party leader was doing. Just remember, he won on the second ballot. He did not have a majority on the first ballot. By definition, a majority of the National Party caucus did not want him as the party leader. So when favourability goes down, when there's questions about political judgment, MPs have those conversations. I'm not going to outline who they are, though. I think they deserve to have their confidence kept.
Are you aware of complaints? Jami-Lee, are you aware of complaints made to the National Party before the election last year about your own behaviour, allegations of erratic behaviour and bullying?
Oh, my wife resigned from the Howard local board. There was a local board team that I was the campaign manager of. A majority of that team decided that they wanted my wife to be the chair of that board. And I was the party whip at the time, or a party whip at the time. I was the campaign manager. I was suggesting to candidates for that local board that subsequently got elected that, we have a team, you make a decision as a team and you stick by it. And so I was suggesting to some of those members that they should go with what the majority decision was. And by the way, how political parties work is, I'm finding this out myself, how political parties work is if you buck what the party wants or what the team wants, then that usually doesn't end particularly well for you when it comes to a subsequent election. And so they could characterise it as bullying if they want. I'd say I was the campaign manager for a team and I was asking them to carry out what the majority wanted.
Does this undermine your suggestion, though, that this is a smear from Simon Bridges as leader when some concerns or reports predate his time in the job, that this goes back until...
I was the party whip. By definition, I put pressure on MPs and other politicians to toe the party line. It just so happens that was a local government election, and it just so happens that it was quite personal because my wife was a member as well. And so it is natural for someone to question the actions of what I was doing as a campaign manager when it was my spouse involved. She made a tough decision to resign from that local board and suffered the consequences and reputational damage. I would say to you, however, Sam, that the subsequent central government election, my majority increased. So my local community looked at everything that was on the table. It was a year before the election. They made a judgment and they gave me an increased majority. So I'm comfortable with my actions with regard to the Howick local board.
You don't think that Simon Bridges should be leader? Who do you think should be the leader of the National Party?
That's up to the caucus, which I'm no longer a part of, to decide. There are 3 MPs that stood for leader that are still in the caucus: Amy Adams, Judith Collins and Mark Mitchell. I'm deliberately outlining them in current rank order. I believe they are more honest individuals. I believe they are more capable individuals. I believe one of them, when they become the National Party leader, the National Party will do a much better job of convincing New Zealanders of National Party policy.
And how was it this morning for you hearing your colleagues and your friends calling you things like a rogue MP, disloyal, appalling?
I switched my phone off at 1 p.m. yesterday and I turned it on when I sent that tweet at 11:15, so I don't even know what you've all been saying. I took time out. I drove here, so I drove from Auckland. I knew I needed to be here because that's where all of you are. and I needed the time out to clear my head and think about what I needed to do. I'm very comfortable and confident in my decision today, and very comfortable in what I've said today, because I've had 9 hours of driving to think about it. I've had overnight, and I got up this morning, typed out this statement based on everything I know, and I'm comfortable with what I'm doing here. I don't know what's been in the media since 1 p.m. yesterday, though.
Jami-Lee, what's the end game for you? Are you just trying to take Simon Bridges down? Are you trying to clear your name, or where does this end?
Well, I guess there's multiple strings to that. The PwC report did not come to a conclusion, but it's been used against me. Upstairs on level 3, they were going to either suspend or expel me, and there were strong desires to use the waka jumping legislation. So it's highly likely there would have been a vacancy in the Botany electorate in any case. I've made the decision to resign so I can seek a new mandate from my community. I want them to decide who they think is best to represent them, a National Party backbencher under the current leadership or someone that speaks out. I've spoken out for 15 years. I should have spoken out earlier with regards to Simon Bridges. I'm doing that now. What's my end game? I'd like to continue representing the Botany electorate. I love my job. I love my community. I've lived there for a long period of time. I've represented them in local and central government elections. I think I've stood and successfully won 7 elections there, and I'll ask them to consider my future now.
So are you confident that you'll win? Are you confident that you have the numbers to become the Botany MP running as an independent candidate?
I'm confident that I can run on a track record of 15 years. When I drive around my electorate, I see sports facilities, I see parks that I've been involved in, I see people in the local town centre that I've helped. I know that there are many people who I've worked alongside of for a long period of time. I'll ask them to consider whether they think I'm fit to continue. I believe, based on what I've done for the Botany electorate for the past 15 years in local and central government, that I should continue representing them. Do I think that I'll win? I wouldn't be doing this if I thought there was no hope. I will say to the Botany electorate, you have an opportunity to elect somebody as an independent that can speak up on your behalf freely, or you can elect somebody who will sit up the National Party backbench, who will sit there nodding and clapping at the appropriate time whenever the leader says so, and work under a leader who's broken the Electoral Act multiple times, who is becoming more and more unpopular in the eyes of the public, and whose political management and judgment I seriously question, and I know New Zealanders do as well.
If you win, is there a possibility that you would form a coalition if it comes to that with the Labour Party?
I'll be 1 seat, and they have a 3-seat majority. I don't think they need me. But an independent member of Parliament, or a local member of Parliament that does a good job, can speak out publicly, can advocate for their constituents, and I'd like to continue doing that for my community.
Can you explain why you were speaking? Can you explain why you were speaking with the local police officer if it wasn't about the leak?
Yeah, I have a good relationship with my local police officer. Her name's Wendy Spiller. There's an issue to do with the police officer. It's quite sensitive. I heard information. I discussed that information with the local police inspector, and I don't think I should, as a local MP, go any further. Local MPs talking to local police officers is very common.
Would she pick up your story?
It'll be up to the police.
You
So
say
you've been in politics for a long time, both at a local level and central. How does it feel coming here today and doing what you're doing?
It's quite liberating to be able to speak freely. I've felt uncomfortable for quite some time about decisions made around the leadership, decisions made by the leader. I felt uncomfortable for a long period of time about things that I was asked to do. And I feel quite liberated that I now have an opportunity to speak freely. I should have done so earlier. I tried to speak truth to power internally. I was not listened to. As I said, it was only Paula, Bennett and I that sat in his office and said to Simon, don't do this, because you don't know where this is going to go with regards to the inquiry. And when we heard that awful text message, said we shouldn't be continuing this because somebody's health is in danger. And so I should have spoken out earlier. I tried to internally, it didn't work. I've now had a very public falling out with Simon Bridges. I now have the opportunity to speak as I am today.
Jami-Lee, you said you still believe in the values of the National Party.
Absolutely.
Is there any path back to you after you become an MP or not? Back to the National Party under a new leader?
Not when Simon Bridges is the leader.
But under a new leader?
In the next couple of months, there will be a by-election. I will ask my community whether they think I'm fit to continue serving. If they decide that, then I'll come here as an independent member of Parliament. What happens after that? I don't know. But I will tell you that I believe in the National Party values. I believe there are good people in the National Party. I believe when they have an honest and a capable leader, which they don't now, that the National Party will do much better. And I don't know what the future will hold, but that'll be up to the National Party.
Did you
Did you
vote
vote
for
for
anyone?
Yes, I did. I was his numbers man. I voted for him. I should have known back then what I know now.
When you were being lobbying for Bennett,
Nationals had a bit of a history of hiding or trying to hide donors before, so, it hasn't got such a great record anyway before this supposed attempt by Simon Bridges.
I was on the National Party board for about a year or so when I was the chief whip, and then I stayed on the board afterwards. What's happened before then, I don't know. The National Party board governs that. What I know now is that unlawful activity has taken place and it should be appropriately dealt with by the authorities.
Jamie, did you purposely hold this press conference right now while the National Party are meeting upstairs so as to Simon Bridges doesn't really have a chance to defend himself before his
The timing might be helpful on that basis.
Jamie-Lee, did Paula
So what's on
Bennett,
purpose?
Literally, mate, I finished writing this about 10 o'clock. I went down to the warehouse station, I printed it out, and then I came here.
So you're hoping that upstairs right now, Simon Bridges is having to answer all these questions from his caucus as they see this come out live?
What happens upstairs kind of is irrelevant to me now. I've taken the decision myself to resign my membership of the party and also my seat in the House of Representatives. That's not an easy decision to make. But I've made that decision because I believe it should be up to the Botany electorate to decide who represents them. And based on everything that's been said about me, they should have a fresh opportunity to decide if I'm fit to continue. And I also believe that I should be speaking out publicly, which I'm doing now.
There's
did
been some
Paula,
reporting
Jamie-Lee, did when you were talking with Paula Bennett and she was in Bridges' leadership?
No, Paula is a very disciplined individual. I have a lot of time for Paula. She's a good person. She has compassion. Our leader, her leader, does not. She wouldn't express dissatisfaction with leadership in general, but we both sat there. We were the only two in the room. Of about half a dozen MPs that were in that room, we were the only two who said it shouldn't happen. She didn't express dissatisfaction with the leader, she expressed a disagreement with that decision. We've had discussion over time about how we're going to get Simon Bridges' likeability up, if that's possible, but she's too loyal as a deputy to do that.
There's been some reporting that you were unhappy about.
Sorry.
When and where will you be handing over information to police tomorrow?
I'm honestly not sure. I'll either decide on Wellington Police Station or Counties Manukau Police Station. I haven't made that decision, other than I need the day to put together the information for them, and then I will do so tomorrow. I'll seek an opportunity to make a statement, I guess.
There's been some reporting that you were unhappy.
Well, sorry.
Why didn't you go to the cops before the media? Because it does look like you're playing.
Because it's unlawful activity, and the police are the ones that decide whether to prosecute unlawful activity
But why
under
not
the
go to
electorate.
them before you told us?
Because there's a bit of a media storm and you were all looking for me. I think I had about 100 messages on my phone from media wondering where I was. And I took yesterday afternoon and overnight and early this morning to think about it. I couldn't hide out for too much longer. I had to come out and speak to you, so I've done that.
There's been some reporting that you were unhappy about losing the chief whip role and that this might be sour grapes. Is that true?
No. What happened during the leadership election is Simon Bridges basically said to Todd McLeay and I, you guys help me get elected as leader. Todd, you'll get to be the Foreign Affairs spokesperson and you'll get to be the guy in charge of the polling. And he said to me I'd be the shadow leader of the House. He came to me a couple of days after he was elected leader and he said, look mate, I can't give you shadow leader of the House because Jerry Brownlee wants Foreign Affairs or he wants shadow leader of the House. If Jerry Brownlee doesn't get Foreign Affairs or shadow leader of the House, then he's going to sit up the back bench and throw rocks at me, and I just can't have that because the media will know Jerry and listen to him. So he said I have to give him something. I'm not giving Todd's job of Foreign Affairs away, so I have to give shadow leader of the House away. So I accepted that. On a recommendation from Paula, she suggested that instead of being shadow leader of the House, I could continue as chief whip. And so I went back to Simon and said, look, I'd be happy to continue as chief whip. I went overseas for about 5 days while the final decisions were being made. he'd promised me shadow leader of the House and then changed his mind. He'd promised me chief whip, and then I came back from overseas and that job had gone as well. We had some very heated conversations on the phone where I basically said, hey mate, I helped get you elected. You made certain promises and now you're going back on that. If two people that helped you the most, or me, one of two people that helped you the most, can't rely on you to continue with your word and be true to your word, who can rely on you? Like, I'm a good National Party supporter, and I opted to just back the leader, and so I didn't get chief whip either. But I was number 7 in the transport portfolio. Richard Harmon, is he here? He's thoroughly incorrect in what he said in Politic today. I did get that report pointed out to me. He's thoroughly incorrect. Look what's happening here, I'm pretty sure, is they knew, because I told Simon Bridges a couple of weeks ago that I had this recording of his conversation that he and I had with regards to the donation. I'm pretty sure that a few of them have been spreading a few things around, and what probably went Richard Harmon's way was they said, Jami-Lee's just unhappy because he didn't get some roles.
I thought you hadn't consumed any news since 1 o'clock yesterday.
I hadn't turned my phone on. My phone has been off from 1 p.m. yesterday until now. Somebody else read it out to me. And so Richard Harmon's report is inaccurate. It's very wrong, and I'm sure there's information being spread about me. There'll be other information spread about me. I'm here answering questions, outlining what I know.
You've denied the allegation. Why you broke down? Were you avoiding media?
Did you look back and reflect on your behaviour after those allegations of harassment were raised with you?
Of course. If you are somebody who loves your job and enjoys what you do, and then all of a sudden you're called into a meeting, ambushed by 3 people, leader, deputy leader, chief of staff, told that there's all these allegations against you, and you're not told what they are, you're not told who it is, you're not told when it was, you're not told any information, nothing at all. That's devastating. And of course you sit back. I went back to my apartment. I was quite a mess, thinking, oh my goodness, what has happened here? I'm about to lose my career and my reputation. Have I ever done anything? And I looked back on my past and tried to think of anything. I cannot come up with anything. I asked. The next day, I came and saw Simon Bridges. It was just him and I. I didn't want them to gang up on me again, so I demanded a meeting, only him and I. And I asked again, what are these allegations? You owe me natural justice. Please tell me. I want to know. Has someone made a complaint? Who made them? When were they made? What have I supposedly done? All I know is that apparently no laws have been broken, but apparently there's these allegations. But then when I pressed again for natural justice, I was told very clearly by Simon Bridges, look, if you really want natural justice, it won't just be 4 people. I could find 15. I am certain it was a bluff to try and push me out, because when you're a male and you're confronted with those allegations, they're hard to answer or survive. But I wanted to know what apparently the allegations were, so I could answer them. I've never been given any opportunity. I'm told, and I'll repeat this again, I was told very clearly, 4 people, all independent of each other, don't know about each other, all came forward to Paula Bennett. The story changed the next day, but all came forward to Paula Bennett, all within a space of weeks. I find that really hard to believe. If something has happened, I'd like to know so I could fix it. I've not been told anything other than these allegations which made me suffer health-wise. I still have not been told anything.
So you're comfortable with all your
Yes.
you're comfortable
Yes.
with all your behaviour around
Yes.
women while you've been in Parliament,
Yes.
consensual or non-consensual?
Yes.
You're saying the leadership fabricated those claims?
I'm saying that I've asked repeatedly for information around them. I've asked for natural justice. I asked for natural justice over that report yesterday. I've never been given natural justice. I've never been told anything with regards to those allegations. I was simply told if I kept asking for natural justice, the number of women would escalate from 4 to 15, and the story had changed. Yesterday I asked for natural justice too. I had a meeting at 11:30 with Simon Bridges and Paula Bennett. I was given the report. I was pointed to a page. I didn't read the whole report. I was pointed to a page, and I was told that today there'd be a caucus meeting. And Simon wanted to be fair and I could attend the caucus meeting if I wanted to. I said, all right, if you want to be fair, can you give me the opportunity to take this away, read it and digest it and then have natural justice and speak to the caucus first before you release it? He was adamant he was not going to do that. I didn't realise until I'd left the meeting that in about an hour's time he was going to be releasing it to the public. I didn't know, I was not told that at 12:30 odd there was going to be a caucus conference call. Had I known that, I would have had an opportunity to go on the caucus conference call and talk to the MPs. I've not been given natural justice, and so on those two matters, I think I deserve natural justice. I'd like to have been able to answer what supposed allegations are. I've never been told anything, and that's hard to not know anything. I'd like to know, but I'm being told nothing. So my only conclusion is it was part of a reason to push me out the door.
If you swear you're not the leaker, will you waive your privacy with the local police commander and get her to confirm that it's not you?
I'm clear that I'm not the leaker. I'm clear that I've also had conversations with the local police commander about some sensitive issues with regards to a police officer that I heard information on. What the police want to do is up to them. But I'm not going to play politics with the police. I am going to go tomorrow to the police and make a formal complaint. That's what an individual should do. But I'm not going to enter into expecting the police to enter into the political arena. We had a text message that came into Simon Bridges that we were deeply concerned about, and efforts were made to contact the police to try and assist that person's well-being. But the police shouldn't be in a position where they have to play politics.
Jami-Lee, you've made some pretty serious allegations against
Absolutely.
Bridges outside of the House, both on Twitter and right now here. Did you consider at all doing it inside the House to get parliamentary privilege, or are you confident that he would have been able to see defamation?
There's no real opportunity to speak inside the House on these matters. So there was no opportunity. And look, if he wants to do that, he's welcome to. I'm not scared.
Can you just clarify, do you have any idea who the leaker might be? And do you think that National might just lie down and forget about it?
I don't know. They've used unrelated communication that I believe was sourced with a privacy waiver and sourced without actually having our authority to look at unrelated communication, and that unrelated communication has been used to pull strands together which make it look like it's me. The report also said it's inconclusive, it's not conclusive evidence. There is still a leaker out there, and I don't know what the National Party will do from here. All I know is they've got a report where they're making it look like me.
Is there any way to subtract the survivor to allow the police officer to confirm whether or not to do with that illegal?
I don't think the police should be in a position where they have to play politics. I've said to you very clearly, I had conversations with my local area commander about issues to do with a police officer that I had information come my way. And the right thing to do is speak to a police inspector. I don't think the police should be in the position of playing politics. I will make a complaint because that's what you do when there's electoral act, unlawful activity, but I don't think the police should have to play politics in matters like this. Have a good day.